How's it going, my truant people? Dr. Slacking, the Slacking Doctor, back with another tier list today, and today I am rating all of the returning Pokemon in the, I think it's Crown Tundra? Oh no, it's Isle of Armor, actually, DLC that will be dropping in about 4 days, I believe. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be ranking them on their influence, the impact I expect them to have on the Wi-Fi Draft League meta. Now, I want to specify that because I'm not talking about in like a Nat Dex Showdown meta where you've already been using these Pokemon, most people. I'm referring specifically to the kind of the cartridge metagame, which is what I predominantly play here on the channel, which I think has the biggest viewership on YouTube too. Now, I have already recorded this video once, full disclosure, but I wasn't satisfied with my explanations of things, so I decided to re-record it because I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys the best quality content possible, because if you haven't already seen, we're trying to grow here, we're trying to improve the channel, we're doing everything we can. And in light of that, if you haven't already, look down the description, there is a subscriber Discord server where you guys give me feedback on these videos and you can also have a say. So this was actually voted on in the Discord server as to whether this would be a video or not, and the majority of responses said that they wanted it to be a video, although it was a decent split. And that's how I'm going to function it, basically. If I ask whether people want a video and it gets a majority yes, I'll make it. If it gets a majority no, I won't. So if you guys want to say on what goes on the channel, do that. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. We make a lot of Draft League analysis videos here, Showdown Lives, Wi-Fi Draft League battles, etc, etc. So let's move on and get into the meat and potatoes of this video. I have to give a huge shout out to Finchinator, who made this tier list. I stole it off his channel, off his video. He made it for OU, UU, ladder, Smogon usage, and Wolfglick also made a similar video for VGC usage, but I figured, well, I don't see many people doing this for Draft League usage, and specifically the Wi-Fi metagame, so I wanted to kind of give my take on that. If you don't know me, why am I qualified to speak on this? I've been playing in Wi-Fi leagues for a year or two now, been runner-up in the IBLD League, my first Wi-Fi league, semi-finals twice in UBL, a bunch of other stuff, PGBL champion, of course, at the end of Gen 7, so yeah, I've decently experienced and decent performances in Wi-Fi draft leagues, but still comment down below telling me I'm bad if you're a long-time subscriber, and I'll enjoy that. Anyway, so I think I'm reasonably qualified to speak on this metagame. I played in the UBL and then EWT pre-DLC, so I do have some experience of the pre-DLC meta. Right, so for those of you who don't know, a load of Pokemon have been confirmed to return when the DLC drops. These are the ones that I believe we know are coming back, and some of them have got leaked movesets. So basically in Pokemon Home, some of these Pokemon, when you transfer them from Sun and Moon, have moves that they've never been able to learn before, which people are basically speculating, or this is my understanding, people are speculating means they'll get them after the DLC drops. So hopefully that all makes sense. I'm going to try and cover things in pretty layman's terms. I'm going to try and go over this for anyone who's new to the Draft League format, who's a beginner, because I realize that a lot of people that watch Wi-Fi Draft Leagues aren't necessarily seasoned Draft League players themselves, but I'm also going to try and give insights for even the more experienced players, because I know that my viewer base is probably made up mostly of Draft League players themselves. So let's start off by talking about Azumarill. Azumarill, I think, is going to be really, really big in this metagame. I don't think it's going to be a definitive Pokemon, and what that means is something like Dracovish or Melmetal, that every team, you're going to see it drafted in every single league it's in, and every team is going to want to have a counter to it or a check to it. I think Dracovish is the definition of definitive in the pre-DLC metagame, because every team in Wi-Fi just feared Dracovish. Every team wanted to get a water immunity. Every single draft league got picked up in. So I don't think Azumarill is going to be necessarily that tier. I think it's going to be really great, but I don't think teams will necessarily look at their team and think, am I to Azumarill weak? And I don't think it will necessarily get drafted in every single league. However, what I do think is I think it's going to be one of the strongest setup threats in this metagame that we have confirmed right now. We don't have that many great belly drum sweepers left anymore. If you don't know what belly drum does, it cuts your HP in half to maximize your attack. So the greatest Pokemon to do this are the Pokemon with priority, because if they can move before their opponent after they've boosted up, it doesn't matter that they've cut their HP in half because they're not getting hit anyway. So something like Lanoon, Azumarill, these are Pokemon that have done that in the past. Now Lanoon suffered a bit of a nerf in this generation. The 50% berries that we had last generation, Iapapa, whatever else, berries, Figgy, I think, Mago, I think these are all 50% berries. They no longer restore 50% of your HP, so things like Lanoon that had Gluttony plus Belly Drum aren't as good as they once were. Azumarill never had Gluttony anyway, so it was always running a Citrus Berry or Z Belly Drum. And Z Belly Drum had its niche, but it wasn't the dominant set in draft leagues, I don't think. I think Citrus was more common in my opinion. So All that being said, I think this is going to be the best belly drum mon probably in the metagame. Things like Komodo with sub belly drum Salak, you don't see a ton in Draft League, nor Darmanitan with sub belly drum Salak. Both of them will often have teams against them that have a Scarfer to outspeed that. So whilst you might see that on the ladder on heat sets, I don't think you see it too much in Wi-Fi. So I think this is going to be the premier mon with Aquajet plus belly drum. Also, it got some new toys, so let's have a little look at those. As it picked up Brutal Swing and High Horsepower being the significant moves on its new moveset. Now, this is what we expect it to get in the DLC. Obviously, this isn't confirmed by Game Freak or anything like that, but it's in home, so I don't think Brutal Swing will be that necessary. I don't really know what it particularly wants to hit that with. You know, if you're playing like against a Delmise, sure. It'll have its niche in Draft League. High Horsepower, pretty good for steel types. Again, most of the time, I think you're going to be running Play Rough, Liquidation, Aquajet for the majority of the time. There will be matchups where, hey, I'm facing a Weezing, I want to run High Horsepower. There will be matchups where, hey, I'm facing a Delmise, I want to run Brutal Swing, but not that often, I don't think. So, I mean, Weezing would have Levitate, but if it was like neutralizing gas Weezing or something to try and counter your huge power, you could probably still kill it with the High Horsepower plus 6 with your base attack stat. Anyway, getting off a tangent. So I think this one's going to be very strong. I think it'll be drafted a bunch. I think that people will draft around it. I think it'll have a place on rain teams, but I don't think it's going to be a top tier influence. This, I think, is going to be the same bracket, and I'm going to put these two together. Blissey and Chansey, I think, together will have a definitive influence. Having these two massively fat Wish passes back, you know what Wish does? It restores 50% of your HP the next turn, but you can put it into other Pokemon. So you can switch and the other Pokemon would get 50% of your HP stat. These Pokemon have such massive HP stats that I think their influence together will be definitive. I think we will see teams able to run Blissey and Chansey that have sorely missed them so far this generation. A lot of balanced semi-stall and stall teams in Draft League. Stall in Draft League is not as good as it is on the ladder, but semi-stall and balance, I would say, are the dominant archetypes in Draft League. So I think that if you look at some of the most definitive players like Gypsy King, I would say he plays balance to semi-stall, and he's very influential playstyle. I think a lot of the top tier players you see regen cores, aloe, things like that. So I think these will have a role, and together I think it'll be definitive, but as individuals I think they'll just have a strong presence. Yeah, I think they're going to be really, really powerful. Teleport is nice on them, but it's overrated. It's not quite as good as Teleport Clef, but it's still good. I think Soft Boil Teleport, if you don't know, Teleport now gives you momentum. It switches you out with negative priority. I think if you want to come in on something like a Jolteon, for example, soak up a Thunderbolt, it's not going to be able to hit you with anything, then you can like Teleport. You've probably only taken nothing after leftovers recovery. You've probably taken no damage and you've got free momentum on your opponent. I think that will be useful, but I don't see it being a great Wish passer with Teleport personally. Next up, Dedenne, no usage. I don't think that this thing will get drafted in more than 5% of draft leagues. Honestly, I don't think it'll get drafted in more than 1% of draft leagues. It'll be a meme pick when it gets picked or a mascot pick. Very electric, phenomenal typing, as we've seen with Tapu Koko. On the right mon with the right stats. Dedenne does not have those stats. I don't need to look at what new moves it's getting because it won't have anything that will make it widely used. Its stats are too poor. Dragalge, niche. I don't think it gets anything new apart from Hydro Pump. Obviously, as I said, I have recorded this video before, so I have some memory of some of these things. Oh no, it just got Endure, sorry. So, no new moves, no new buffs. It loses Hidden Power Fire for Steel types. It wasn't great before. It's a very slow, physically frail wall breaker. Adaptability, Dragon plus Poison Stab is great, but it is hard-walled by steel types, especially without Hidden Power Fire. It doesn't get Flamethrower, Fire Blast, or anything like that, and it didn't get Mystical Fire that a lot of mons got. It's a good T-Spiker, I guess. It's hard to get on the field. Crucially, it's frail, so it's hard to get Dragalge on the field without slow momentum, something like Teleport Chansey. And then steel types wall you forever anyway, so you fire off a Draco Meteor and do 25%, they get leftovers back as you switch out. Yeah, Dragalge isn't the best Pokemon. I don't think it'd be more than niche even in this metagame. It is better than the last metagame, arguably because it's a slower metagame this generation, but I still don't think it'd be much more than that. Druddigon is borderline. I do think Druddigon... I actually think Druddigon's going to be better than Dragalge this metagame. It's a rocker. Glare is really nice with some of the slow wall breakers. I could see somebody picking up like Toxtricity plus Glare support Druddigon. You get Stealth Rocks up, you got Rocky Helmet Rough Skin, you can Glare things. Sheer Force Life Orb Druddigon, it gets good coverage. It doesn't fuck around, it does a lot of damage. I could see that being a viable set in Draft League. I did... once sweep someone with a Trick Room, Life Orb, Sheer Force, Druddigan. I Trick Roomed with Cling Clang, Volt switched into my Druddigan and swept him. He knows who he is. And yeah, I didn't sweep him, but I broke his whole team with it. Very, very good that set, very strong. And maybe in a slower metagame we can see this do something. Endure, I don't think it'd be that relevant. You know what? Endure actually is really cool. Shout out to Aquarius. I saw them run Endure, Rocky Helmet, Rough Skin, Garchomp. That's pretty spicy. You can run Endure on this thing now to get that extra little bit of Rough Skin plus Rocky Helmet. That would be not bad on those bulkier sets, actually. I think that could have a niche too. But yeah, Glare, Rocks plus Sheer Force. I'm going to put it in viable. I think it's viable this generation. I think it will be okay to use. I don't think it'll be too bad at all at the moment. Executor, unfortunately this thing would have a Sun niche with Chlorophyll doubling its speed in Sun. This thing would have a Sun niche if Venusaur wasn't already around. Venusaur is so much better than this thing, unfortunately, is Sun. With Weather Ball, Growth, Earth Power, Sludge Bomb. Like, already Grass plus Poison is great coverage because you beat the bulky grasses. The only thing that really takes you on is the steel types, and now you have Weather Ball for the steel types. It's not bad at all. I'm trying to think of other like big grass resist dragon types. Don't love being sludge bombed in from like a growthed up Venusaur with +2 special attack. So yeah, I think Venusaur just outclasses this thing so much that it's going to really struggle. I think it has a niche. I think it's not too bad with Hidden Power Bug gone. There'll be some mons that can wall pretty well. But Hidden Power Bug was never its biggest threat. Its biggest threat was always U-turn, and it's still very U-turn susceptible. It doesn't like knockoff, and knockoff, in my opinion, is the best move in the game this generation. So yeah, Executor is borderline down here, but I do think it has a niche. I do think it has a role. It's not terrible. It's just completely outclassed by Venusaur, sadly. Emolga will get picked up here and there. Again, mostly as a meme pick. It's okay. Nuzzle, Super Fang, same as Dedenne. It's not great. It can do some team support things. It has a decent speed tier. It has a good ability, but its stats are so bad, I don't see it doing much. Exploud. I actually think Exploud is viable with this generation. I think as a slower wall breaker, we've seen a few of them, Toxtricity is an example I've already given, be not bad this generation. We already have 3 of the best Sticky Webbers with Rabombi, Araquanid, and Vikavolt. I'm pretty sure Rabombi's already in the game, but certainly Araquanid and Vikavolt are already in the game. So there's a bunch of Sticky Web options already out there. Slower wall breakers have been decent this generation with the whole metagame being slower. Special normal types I think are not bad, and I say this because there are things like Gengar and Dragapult and these ghosts that you can't trap anymore with Pursuit, that you could maybe switch in on a Shadow Ball and you wouldn't have to fear the Will-O-Wisp. So because most ghosts get Will-O-Wisp as kind of a support move. So special normal types I don't hate in this generation at all. Of course you don't want to take a Spectre or Meteor from Dragapult anyway, and you certainly don't want to take a Sludge Wave from Gengar either. So I appreciate it's not a great ghost check, but I'm just saying I think it has a niche with its speed tier and the rampant ghosts, not wanting them to be able to lock into Scarf Shadow Ball or Specs Shadow Ball. I think is pretty nice. So I think it's viable this generation. This is the thing that got Hydro Pump. I'm pretty sure if we look, Exploud, yeah, down here, got Hydro Pump, shout out Slacking. Look at this man, he's going to be a beast when he comes back, if they give him hidden ability. But Exploud, yeah, just Hydro Pump. It's okay, I think it already had Surf, so fine. Unfortunately, Golduck, I actually think we'll get no usage. This thing, Swift Swim is pretty cool, but again, all of the good Swift Swim users are either already back in Ludicolo, Barrascuda, and then there's Rain Scarfers like Dracovish that have been pretty prevalent on Rain teams. And then we have other things coming back, which I'll get to in a minute, that I think just completely outclass this. So unfortunately, unlike early Sun and Moon, where this was one of the best Rain abusers, I think it's just going to have no usage yet again, unless it comes with a big stat buff or something. Or a new regional form that's good. Yeah, Muddy Water's not much of a buff. So Kangaskhan, I think Kangaskhan's always been niche. I think it's always been an okay, bulky, normal Wish Passer. But I actually think Kangaskhan now goes up to viable. I think it's better than these two, in fact. I think that Kangaskhan, with Sucker Punch being a bulky, normal type that can easily run an Assault Vest or bulky Wish, is really good in this metagame. Scrappy as well, to be able to hit ghost types with its normal stab. It never depended on return in terms of it has double-edged Body Slam. And if you're running a bulky normal type, sometimes Body Slam is better, a bit like how you like to get Scald Burns with a water type, a bulky water. rather than Hydro Pump, well, you might want to get Paralysis with Body Slam on a bulky normal type. So I actually think Kangaskhan has a real niche this metagame. I think it could be very, very interesting. It got Beat Up, which is cool and niche, not great. Assurance, which actually, you know, if you were trying to take a Draco Meteor from a Dragapult and then you hit it with a big Assurance, you're going to Oko that thing. I'm pretty sure that gets powered up if you move second, so that's going to be strong. Hydro Pumps, nice coverage, but for the most part, Sucker Punch, Body Slam, Wish, Protect, something like that could be really useful. Fake Out, good priority. I think this thing has a real viable niche this generation, which I think would be interesting, or in this metagame. Finally, we got into our first definitive top tier Pokemon. Now, why do I think Kingdra is better than Azumarill, for example, that will almost certainly be tiered higher than Kingdra? Why do I think it's better than the obnoxious Blissey Chansey shenanigans? I think this thing will be definitive because I think this is the best rain Pokemon we have this generation, and so its influence on the metagame, its role on rain teams will be more impactful than anything else we've seen so far. This thing got a big buff this generation as it got access to Liquidation and Hurricane. So now when you're in rain, you have 100% accurate Hurricanes, which is a really high base power move, has a really good chance of confusion, and hits grass types that might want to be in on you. And crucially, now you don't have to click Draco Meteor to hit those grass types that otherwise you'd be low on your special attack to hit. We also had access to Ice Beam, but Hurricane is just a better version of Ice Beam. So this thing with Life Orb in Rain, Hurricane, Hydro Pump, Draco Meteor, or Liquidation now on the physical side, Outrage. That shit's a threat. That shit's a real threat. I don't think that Ludicolo can compete with it as a Rain Sweeper now. I think Ludicolo's good. I think this is better. I don't think Barrascuda's nearly as good as a Rain Sweeper, despite me liking Barrascuda. I think this is the superior Water Dragon if you're drafting Rain to Dracovish. I honestly do, because you can change up your moves, and you can't just... Everyone wants to pick up a Dracovish counter in this metagame. Not everyone will have a Kingdra counter. In fact, very few people will. You know, you could have a Maractus last generation and be able to take on... or before the DLC, sorry, be able to take on Dracovish. Your Maractus, it ain't taking a Hurricane. So, yeah, I think this thing will be the premier Rainmon, and I think Rain teams will draft this undoubtedly every time, and it will be a massive threat, on offensive Rain at least. Really, really good Pokemon. Next up, I'm going to put Crocodile in solid. Dark types this generation are great because, again, no Pursuit means you really need to be able to switch in on those Ghost types. And I do think that this thing is a really good kind of semi-bulky Dark type. Also, it being the only... I'm actually going to move it up one, because it's going to be the only, to my knowledge so far, unless Heracross is confirmed to come back at some point, it is the only Scarf Moxie Sweeper we have. There's no Beast Boost. I don't believe there's anything else with Moxie that I can think of off the top of my head. We don't even have any Speed Boost mons, I don't think. Maybe Sharpedo was around? I'm sure Scolipede wasn't. So this thing, like, in that kind of, like, I love these sweepers that can snowball. So Scarf Moxie, you just keep boosting up your attack. Or Beast Boost, you keep boosting up your attack. Or Speed Boost, you keep boosting up your speed each turn. You get harder and harder to handle. Those kind of rolling, snowballing abilities. I feel like there is a Moxie sweeper that I can't think of right now that we had. Anyway. So I think Crook will have a very, very strong thing with Scarf sets, bulky sets. It did lose Pursuit, which does suck for it. But I believe it got a very marginal buff in Close Combat, which is great for certain coverage moves. You know, let's say... I'm trying to think of what you would need Close Combat for. It's just a really good coverage move, but I'm trying to think of a niche Pokemon that you can't really hit with Dark plus Ground that could hit. There aren't too many, to be fair. Because everything that's really weak to fighting doesn't like taking ground. Yeah, I don't know how this will actually play out, but Close Combat's just a nice move to have. I'm just trying to think like Levitators or something like that you'd want to nuke with a CC. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be niches where Close Combat will be useful. I'm sure there's something that's just eluding my brain right now on the spot. But High Horsepower, I think, is actually pretty cool, because with terrain around with Rillaboom, High Horsepower is nice to have, just in case you play a terrain team. You don't want to be useless. So High Horsepower is nice. Darkest Lariat, I think, is actually really underappreciated, because there will be games where you'll play teams that have a Reuniclus or that will have an Necrozma, and you want to make sure you'll be able to hit them for consistent damage, even if they're Acid Armor sets. Because if they're Acid Armor and you knock them off, the next time you try and hit them, you're not doing anything. So reliable damage against those things, I think, is pretty nice. Darkest Lariat, if you don't know, it ignores your opponent's stat boosts. So yeah, I think as a good Dark type in this generation, even though it lost Pursuit, I still think it's going to have a really strong metagame presence as a great Ground type and a great Dark type. Good Rocker and things like that. Great Scarfer as well. For the first time ever, I think we can put Luxray in viable. Now, I'd put it there in viable. This thing got a huge buff this generation that I don't think should be overlooked. It got agility plus play rough. Now, play rough and Psychic Fang's minor buff, really nice for something like a Komodo, for example. But agility. Now, this thing's biggest problem has always been its speed. With base 125, I believe, attack, guts boost, facade, wild charge, elemental fangs for coverage. It's really strong and a really hard switch into. The problem is it was always too slow, so you wanted like Trick Room or Webs or something. Now you can set up as your Flame Orb activates. If you force a switch while you do that, suddenly you are faster than your opponent's whole team and you can just go to town. I think as a setup late game sweeper, plus the wall breaker, it's always been okay at being. In a very slow metagame anyway, I think Luxray really has a chance to be decent. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be solid or strong, but I think it's going to be viable for the first time pretty much ever. And I'm really excited for that in case you can't tell. So, next up, Lycanroc. I'm going to average Lycanroc across its 3 forms, put it in solid. I think Lycanroc Dusk, because of the new moves it gets. If you don't know the difference between the forms, Lycanroc Dusk is a little bit slower than Lycanroc Day, but it has Tough Claws, so it's so much stronger. It also has access to a Cell Rock that Lycanroc Day gets. Lycanroc Night is much slower, a little bit bulkier, and gets access to, I think it's Reversal, or something like that. Counter, it's Counter. It's very bad, but it has no guard as an ability. It's okay. It's pretty bad though. Lycanroc Midnight will start off with no usage to niche at best, but pretty much no usage. It'll be an okay rock type wall breaker. Maybe I'd put it in niche. Maybe niche, yeah. It's an okay rock type wall breaker because of its new moves, which I'll speak about in a second. But it's more likely that the Day form I think will be viable. Day I don't think is great. Sand Rush, it'll be okay on sand teams, but Excadrill's still in this game. If you're drafting Sand Rush, you want to draft Excadrill. But the Dusk form, that thing is going to be a very strong wall breaker in this generation. The addition of Close Combat to hit bulky steals instead of Drill Run is massive, as well as things like Agility, which is pretty cool, Psychic Fans, which is pretty niche, and I think that's something else, Play Rough, which is pretty cool as well for those fighting types. So Rock type cut stab with Stone Edge plus Tough Claws. If you don't know, Tough Claws gives you a 1.3 times boost, I think, on moves that make contact. And Stone Edge is really strong anyway, it classes as a contact move. So you have Tough Claws boosted Stone Edges, I'm pretty sure it classes as a contact move. Before you had Drill Run as your contact coverage for steel types. Now you have Close Combat, which is more accurate and stronger. And you're already fast, so you don't really mind dropping your defenses. That's incredible. Sets like Accel Rock, Stone Edge, Close Combat, Sword Stance, they're going to be phenomenal wall breakers in this generation with Lycanroc Dusk. And the play rough for things like bulky fighting types like Komodo, like a Poliwrath, I'm trying to think of bulky fighting types that are in this meta game, that just Conkelda, things like that would wall your Stone Edge otherwise. Now you can hit them with a +2 play rough. Oof, this thing is going to be so strong. Unfortunately, Lycanroc Day is just very frail and not that strong. Lycanroc Midnight's frail and slow and bad. But yeah, Lycanroc Dusk is going to be up here. Lycanroc Day down here. Lycanroc Midnight down here. On average, I'll put it in a solid metagame presence as a whole. Magnezone, I'm actually going to put this boy in definitive. Now, I don't think that Magnezone is better than, say, Azumarill. I don't even know if it's better than Crocodile. I don't think it's better than Lycanroc Dusk. But this is the first time we have a really, really viable trapper to things like Corviknight. And I think that's going to be meta-defining. I think there will be teams that will look at them. In fact, I've seen it in Nat decks where they've looked at Corviknight and they've gone, man, Corviknight messes me up. They'll want to jump on Magnezone and Magneton. And Magneton I would also put here. Like, I think the two of them, because I think they're both pretty much equally viable, will be massive. The fact that they're electric types that never really relied on hidden power because you can click Analytic Flash Cannon in certain matchups. You know, let's say your opponent's ground type is a Mamoswine or a Piloswine. They're not coming in on you, so you're spamming Thunderbolt. You can run Analytic, which is another really good ability if you want to be a wall breaker set. Good Scarfers, good Specs users, good Sub-Charge Beam users. If you want to be Heat. I think this thing's going to be a real problem. I mean, I've drafted it twice. I drafted Magneton once, Magnezone once, and I won a championship both times. I don't think that's a coincidence. The only time I've drafted them, I won with them because I'm a bad player. So if I'm winning championships, they must be good. They're the common denominator here. I think they're really fantastic Pokemon. And I think their role in this metagame will be huge as the most viable steel trappers we have. Yes, we have Dugtrio, but Dugtrio in draft can't trap things like Corviknight, can't trap things like Skarmory, can't trap things like Bronzong, and all of those are in this metagame. So I actually think this will be the superior and best Steel-type trapper now. And for that, I think it's up here. Next up, Mienshao. Really interesting actually, because this thing got close combat this generation. One of the best ways to beat like reckless banded Mienshao last generation was just to bring Protect, because it had to lock into high jump kick. Now you could easily run like banded Mienshao with knockoff, CC, high jump kick, U-turn. You could easily run a set like that. You hit your ghosts and your psychics with knockoff, you U-turn out on the fairies and get banded damage on that and momentum, and then you have CC plus high jump kick for, okay, I don't need reckless high jump kick damage to Oko this mon, I'll just click banded CC instead. So I really think this thing, even on Assault Vest sets like Assault Vest Regenerator Pivot, which we've seen a bit before, suddenly you can click CC instead of high jump kick. So I think CC is a huge buff for this Pokemon. Brutal Swing is pretty nice, Agility is pretty cool, but for the most part I think CC is a really big buff, and also the fact that we can now have Regenerator cores I think makes this thing really solid in this metagame. I think it's borderline strong, but I think ultimately it's just really solid. I think it will get undrafted in a bunch of leagues because people sleep on this thing, but yeah, the role it'll have on Regenerator momentum teams now, and we'll get onto Regenerator momentum, could be really interesting, and I could be proven wrong, and this thing could rise up in usage a lot and influence. Politoed, I'm going to put in strong. We already have Pelipper, which on rain offense, in my opinion, is a superior rain setter. But Politoed on like rain semi-stall and stuff and rain balance can have just as good a role. So it didn't get much new stuff, I don't believe. But it, just as another rain setter, its influence will be there. It will get drafted on rain teams. Weather Ball, pretty cool. Liquidation, sure. Screech could have some niche things. Maybe ally switch in doubles would be really useful for rain teams in doubles, but perish trap ally switch or something. But in singles, I just think it's going to be like here. As a rain setter, I think it's always going to be there because it's not a bad weather setter. It's a perfectly viable one. So if you wanted a different one to Pelipper, you're going to use it. So this thing got buffed. This thing got liquidation. It got close combat. Suddenly this thing has viable stabs instead of waterfall and circle throw. This thing really has viable stabs now. Also got drain punch if you want to bring it outside of rain, just as a bulky, like, think about things like the rain teams that are going to be throwing around with Dracovish and stuff. Suddenly you have another water absorb mon as well if you just want to bring it as a bulky water plus fighting type. We've spoken about the offensive rock types and stuff and dark types. Suddenly you have a bulky fighting type that can drain punch finally. I think this thing is going to be solid, this metagame. I think it's going to be the best it's ever been. Like I said, it just got so many buffs with those new moves here. Drain punch, reversal, Close combat, Darkest Lariat to be able to hit bulky psychic types, although if you're in rain, you'll probably just click liquidation anyway. Really nice buffs, really nice buffs. I think we'll see this thing drafted a lot more than ever before. It would have been down here before with Golduck, now it's up here, and I'm super excited for that. Scissor, I think Scissor is going to be... I think Scissor is going to be meta-defining. I think this thing is going to be the best Steel-type pivot along with Corviknight that we have in the whole generation, and I don't think that should be undervalued. Without Hidden Power Fire in it, in the generation or in the metagame, I think this thing gets even better. It's going to be a great... We've spoken about Setup plus Priority and Belly Drum Aqua Jet. Well, this is Swords Dance Bullet Punch, really strong. Banded U-turn sets, like I think on Volt turn teams, these two, will be around a lot. I think momentum teams are going to love Scissor being back. I love Scissor being back. I've always adored this Pokemon. It loses Pursuit, but it gains Hidden Power Fire being gone, which is huge. So yeah, I expect Scissor to be everywhere in this metagame and to be very, very strong and influential. I don't believe it got too much new, but I will check. Yeah, nothing really. Sandtomb for trapping, sure, if you're Sean, but anyone else won't use that. Skarmory. I'm going to put Skarmory here with its friends, Blissey Skarm, Chansey Skarm, like it loves these boys, and I'm going to put it there with them. I think it won't be the dominant steel flying type that it has been before, because Celesteela, when that comes back in the next DLC, and Corviknight in this metagame is just superior. But I do think the Skarmory has its own niche, which is why I think it will still be very strong, because Corviknight can't get up rocks yet, unless it gets that after DLC. It can't get up spikes. I really think that Corviknight's better as like a pivot or a setup mon, whereas this thing's an amazing hazard setter and an amazing wall, and I think it will continue to be that in this metagame. So Skarmory, if you don't know, is immensely physically defensive, so it's been partnered with these special walls in the past to form just really oppressive defensive cores, and its partners in crime coming back at the same time it does, I think gives it a real niche in this metagame. Next up, the #1 most definitive Pokemon I think may be coming back in this metagame. Spoilers, I don't think I'm putting anything else higher than this. Regen is back, boys. Balanced Semi-Stall is back, boys. Like, I spoke about Regen Momentum with Mienshao. Teleport Slowbro, we've seen it in the Natdex metagame, it's so good. As I said before, Teleport gives you a slower priority pivot move. So you come in on a Terrakion, you take a close combat, it's a banded Terrakion, let's say, I don't know why it is, but you come in on a Keldeo, you take a Specs Air Slash, you click Teleport, and you regenerate all that damage off, and you bring in your Mienshao, and you click U-turn, and you bring back in your Slowbro, and you click Teleport, and you bring back in your Mienshao. Ugh, Regen Momentum is the best it's ever been. Yeah, this thing is going to be incredible. Good Dracovish check, good Melmetal check. This thing is just going to be really fucking good. Really good, this metagame. And I expect this to be picked up on every single draft league I see. I don't think it'll ever go undrafted. I don't think it should. Slowking, I'd put 1 tier below, just because I don't think it checks as many of the metagame's threats, like Melmetal as well, or Dracovish as well, or things like that. And I appreciate Dracovish can crunch, but I think Slowking is special. It's always been just slightly worse than Slowbro. Nasty Plot sets on this thing, because it also got Nasty Plot, is pretty cool. Stored Power, Calm Mind sets on Slowbro and Slowking. Oh, I think Slowbro benefits from that more. Calm Mind boosting its Spadef is better than Slowking that would want to boost its Fizdef. So yeah, this thing's going to be an absolute menace. It has so many good viable sets. I think it's going to be phenomenal. And I think the fact that it brings back Regenerator cores, because previously all we've had so far in the cartridge metagame is Eldegoss. Eldegoss? Have we had anything else with regen? Is it just Eldegoss? So Eldegoss was your regen option, unless there's something I'm missing. Amoonguss is allegedly coming back as well, although it isn't on this tier list. But if that comes back too, it's game over. Starmie, I'm actually going to put here. I'm going to put it at the bottom of strong. I think Starmie's phenomenal in this metagame. Not being able to be pursuit trapped, having a great speed tier in a slow metagame, having the rapid spin buff giving you a speed boost, having phenomenal coverage outside of hidden power, it never relied on that. Having natural cure, which is a great support ability, having analytic, which is a great offensive ability. I think Starmie is so damn viable in this metagame. However, I think it will continue to be a little bit overpriced by some leagues because of what it did back in like Gen 5 and gens like that. And I think it will continue to be overlooked by newer players because its base stats just aren't that impressive. And I think it takes a good player to make Starmie look good. But in the right hands, I think this thing will be strong. But I think its low usage that I expect it to have will basically stop it being higher up this list ahead of... I think it's better than Crocodile, for example, this generation. I really do think that. But I think it'll get much less usage. So that's my take on it. I think it's going to be great. I don't think it got too much of a buff, but it didn't need it. It already had great... Yeah, agility's kind of funky, but it already had great coverage and stuff, so fine. Next up, Talonflame. Solid, I think. Heavy duty boots, I think it's the bottom of this tier, but I think heavy duty boots will be really useful on it. Will-O-Wisp bulky sets, I used bulk up in the DGBA low tier tournament. It was really good, and that wasn't as, even though it was a low tier tournament, you think it's a more restricted meta game. But in a way, right now, the Wi-Fi metagame is just as restricted. Like, there aren't that many options. And this speed tier is phenomenal when you don't have any options. So, I do think this will be a very solid pick. Better than it was last generation, but of course not as good as it was in Gen 6. But I do see it being a solid pickup this metagame. I don't believe it got anything new apart from Hurricane. I've actually drafted and used it, so I know it didn't really get anything of significance newer than Hurricane. And Hurricane I found to be very bad on it. I'd rather try Brave Bird. So, next up... the second most definitive Pokemon so far, in my opinion. Again, regen, semi-stall, balanced teams are back, lads, and that is so huge. That is so huge, especially if we keep on a land timer. Go watch Shuckle King's team in the EWT. Breaking through these teams even when you're in control of your own timer is hard when he had like Fable Aegis Slash stuff. So these teams are yeah, they're going to be real cancer in this meta game, I think, and I think they're going to be everywhere. I expect loads of people to be trying to pick up tank Slowbro. Man, imagine Regenerator, U-turn, this core. Ugh, it's going to be so hard. It's going to be so hard to handle. And of course, Tangrowth lost nothing. I guess it lost hidden power. It gained Brutal Swing, fine. Oh, the one thing that I overlooked on Slowbro as well, of course, which makes it better than Slowking, is the addition of, at the end here, Body Press, which for Slowbro is really, really good. So, yeah, another reason that Bro is just going to outclass Slowking in this meta game. One other thing I forgot to mention is Scyther. I think Scyther will have a niche. I actually think it will with heavy duty boots and its speed tier. I think it will have a niche, probably the top of niche actually. I think it might be better than these two even. But yeah, I think it would just be niched. Tauros next. Tauros, with its new coverage, I think is actually going to be really, really viable with things like Megahorn, Close Combat, High Horsepower, and Throat Chop. Now, Throat Chop, I think, is the most important one. I've drafted this thing twice, I think, in low tier. Throat Chop means you can hit Ghost types, which you could not do before. You had Payback, which was not good. But like Work Up, Life Orb, Body Slam, this was not a normal type that needed a return either. Work Up, Life Orb, Sheer Force giving you that Body Slam boost to power. Normal stab plus ground stab is always really good because the only things that resist normal are rock and steel, well, neither of them like ground, and then ghost, which you couldn't hit before, but now you can with throat chop. So Work Up, Body Slam, Throat Chop, High Horsepower or Earthquake sets, really good sets. I think I had Earthquake anyway, so I don't think it needs High Horsepower, but fine. Or even Close Combat, you know, if you want to run Close Combat instead of Earthquake, if you outspeed your opponent's whole team, they've got no priority left, as a late game cleaner, yeah, this thing will be a real threat, real threat if you don't mind dropping your defenses. So I think Tauros is viable. I would say it's the top of viable. I don't think it's quite as good as these mons up here still, because of its relatively weak like defenses and the fact that it still doesn't get a great setup. If we got Sword Stance, I'd put it like here, but with Work Up, you know, I'll put it there. Next up, we're back up to definitive. I think this thing's only second to the Regenerator return. Heavy duty boots plus Will-O-Wisp flame body type bulky sets are going to be the best they've ever been. I think this mon's always been great bulky, but you had to defog for it all the time. Well, now you don't with heavy duty boots, which makes me think this thing is going to be seeing a lot of bulky sets. Fiery Dance has always been a great move. Quiver Dance is one of the best setup moves in the game, and like we said, we don't have a ton of great setup threats in this meta game, so Quiver Dance sets I think will be everywhere. I think in Nat Dex people have found this thing. On the Nat Dex ladder I think it's been great. In Nat Dex Wi-Fi I think people have found it okay. I think in cartridge Wi-Fi metagame it's going to be really powerful. One of the best setup threats we have, one of the best bulky fire types we have. I think it'd be awesome. Last but not least, Zoroark. Zoroark only got Endure and Sludge Bomb, which it already had, but it only had it by event. I don't think this thing is... It really depends. If this thing gets the wrong ability, so basically, if you don't know, last generation, illusion was broken, so you could see if you were super effective even when this thing was disguised. Let's say you were disguised as a Tangrowth, fighting should be neutral to you, but you could see that your fighting was actually going to be super effective against the supposed Tangrowth opposite you, basically showing you it was a Zoroark. So Zoroark's ability was not programmed properly last generation. If they fixed that, which I don't have a great lot of faith that they will have done, maybe they delayed it to DLC to fix it, because it is a popular Pokemon that I would have expected to be in the game from new, like Lucario and things like that. It is a fan favorite, Gardevoir. Cough, very fan base. I did expect this thing to be in it from the start, so maybe they delayed it to fix that mechanic. But realistically, if it's, let's say it's still broken, it will be here, because its speed tier at 105 plus Nasty Plot and Sword Stance and its coverage moves make it as good as Tauros on its own. So it will be still viable because it's still a perfectly fine Pokemon. But if it actually gets its proper ability, I would probably put it about here. I think it would be really solid. Its speed tier plus its setup, as I mentioned, would be fantastic in this meta game. It got Encore, which is a pretty nice tech move. People that use Encore well use it really well. You know, so I think it could be an interesting Pokemon. I think it could be a really interesting Pokemon, and I'd like to see it do something. I'd like to see its ability be fixed. But assuming that its ability isn't fixed, which is all I can assume for the current time, I don't have any more information than that, I'm just going to put it to there. If you disagree with anything in this tier list, let me know down below. If you liked this more serious analytical tier list, let me know. I'll be back to more memeing tier list next time when I'll be ranking the legendary Pokemon based purely off my opinion. No attempt at objectivity next time. But this one was meant to be a serious metagame discussion and analysis video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys disagreed with me on some points. And comment down below what you disagreed with because I'd love to know. Regardless, thank you so much for loafing around with me. And I'll catch you again next time.